Hello and welcome to Instant Transmission, a podcast where we discuss everything Dragon Ball and whether wishing for more Namekians is the same as wishing for more wishes. The low-hanging fruit trend continues as we prepare to share 3 of our own personal gripes within the Dragon Ball universe. Put on your old man pants and chase those darn kids off your lawn because we're getting ready to go into Gripe Town. I'm your host, Dayton, and once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Todd.
Hi.
Tonight, Todd and I have decided on a list of our top 3 personal gripes we each have with the Dragon Ball franchise. These gripes are just little complaints and aren't necessarily the 3 biggest problems with the Dragon Ball universe or anything like that. Both of us have come up with our list independently, so you, the audience, will be hearing our gripes for the first time alongside at least one of us. So with all of that covered, was there anything you wanted to add before we got things started, Todd?
I just want to point out that this is all for fun. We both love Dragon Ball, so we're just kind of talking about little things that I think a lot of the fan base would probably agree there are some things that, aren't their favorite, and these are just going to be ours. So it's our personal opinion, and we're just going to have fun with it.
All right, so here are all the imperfections with the perfect franchise. And I'll go ahead and get things started off with since I'm blabbing my mouth right now. And my first little gripe with Dragon Ball are the non-fight fights. And these happen a lot like in the Dragon Ball movies, but there are some instances that it does happen during the series. But these are the fights where there's no real back and forth. It's, hey, you've shown us this character's more powerful. And so we get like a minute of him just beating the snot out of the good guy. And then the good guy flips it around and he starts beating the snot out of the bad guy for a minute. But there's no real choreography. There's no real struggle or back and forth. It's just you're showing us one of them stronger and the other one's getting the snot kicked out of him. And I don't find these to be really interesting fights to follow.
Are these are these kind of the beat downs, or what's a good example of one of these that you're talking about?
So we recently just watched the original Broly movie, and there's a lot of fights in there where it's there are some cool moments, don't get me wrong, but there's also a lot of just Goku standing around just being punched and not really giving anything in return, just to show you how much stronger Broly is than Goku. And I don't find these to be the most compelling sort of fights. Mind you, like I said, this is a gripe, so it's not like it's anything that breaks the universe or anything for me, but I'd like to see a little bit more back and forth, especially when I think of things like Goku's fight with Cell, where he's not going to win that fight, but there's still so much cool shit that's happening that it's fun to follow.
Yeah, I think the fights that are usually the fights that are kind of closer in like a close matchup where you have that good back and forth are the more interesting ones. Goku versus Cell is a great one. One of the ones that's like Goku versus Frieza is an interesting one because there is it's kind of close, but there are things that you find out that make it oh, this was never really a close fight. But you still get a lot of great choreography and good back and forth, and you're kind of rooting for the underdog. But yeah, the ones that are just like a one-sided beatdown, and there's not a lot of interesting stuff going on. I could go without.
It's usually not the main fight either. It's usually a side character fight with somebody. Could be the big boss, but it's a fight that's not the most important fight. Is usually what it is. I reference the original run of Dragon Ball movies because it happens a lot in those. But an example I have of one that's brand new, I kind of felt this way a little bit about Vegeta's fight with the Tamagotchi and Daima, where it kind of didn't feel like much of an actual, there's a couple cool things that happen, but it feels a little bit like a letdown because we're just kind of being shown power levels and one side's winning or the other side's winning, but we don't get the epic back and forth where the good guy kind of scrapes his way past the overwhelming bad guy or anything like that. It's just either this guy's winning or this guy's winning. I don't feel the struggle.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Again, Goku versus Frieza is where you feel like Goku's really scraping the bottom of the barrel, trying to pull out every trick and every ounce of just grit that he can to win that fight. Whereas the fight with Vegeta against the Tamagami, it's a cool reveal for spoilers for the Super Saiyan 3, but it's also I mean, it's kind of the one of the oldest tropes of like, yeah, I mean, Vegeta could have just gone Super Saiyan 3 and won the fight like in an instant if he really wanted to.
Yeah, and like I said, it doesn't really ruin anything for me, but it's a gripe. Like I feel like you could have had a better battle here, or something that's a little bit more compelling of a struggle. But instead, we get just a one side beat down, and then maybe it flips and the other side beats down. And there's really in these non fights, there's also not a lot of creativity that's usually involved. It's just someone getting their nose punched in. And kind of like what you mentioned with Goku's fight with Frieza, before Goku had gone Super Saiyan, he's doing all these creative things, right? Like he's trying to figure out the Kaioken to see if that will work, and he's doing these tricks with like the Kamehameha balls and stuff. Like it's a really interesting struggle. I don't mind there being lopsided power dynamics, but I just want there to be a fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely agree with that. It's yeah, I think tension is a big thing about it for me too. Like there's a lot of tension in the Frieza fight. Like again, if we're talking about like the Vegeta and the Tamagami fight, there's not a lot of tension there either. So it's like there's some cool visuals, but it doesn't make you feel as invested if there's not like an actual struggle and some sort of tension that gives you stakes and interest in the fight itself.
I also feel like in that struggle, you also see a lot of their character shine through, right? You
Right.
see how they're trying to deal with being outclassed. But if you don't really deal with that, like if it's just them getting smacked around, I don't know. I don't find it very compelling. It's like I said, it's not bad. It's just a gripe.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that. There's a few fights like that. Well, there's quite a few fights that could probably fall into that category, I would imagine.
But man, we didn't really talk about this format too much. Should I go through all of mine, or do you want to do one of your gripes now?
I guess we could go back and forth. I think that'll work. So I'll present my number 3 gripe here. So, um, this one could be a big one for some people. I think this is, uh, I don't like how often our side characters get sidelined. I think there are a lot of characters who basically go through like a character arc. Tien is a great example, especially in the original Dragon Ball, where you get like Tien's character arc of kind of being a bad guy, kind of being a jackass, and learning that his mentor is not a good guy, and kind of changing sides and all that sort of thing. But once we get Tien's character arc, once it's finished, Tien doesn't do a lot. I mean, if you look at Tien in Dragon Ball Z, he fights the Saiyans, sure. He doesn't really accomplish a whole lot. And then he basically gets his really cool Tri-Beam moment against Imperfect Cell, or against Semi-Perfect Cell. And that's pretty much it. In Super, he's basically a non-character. So he's probably one of the best examples, I think, of this problem.
You know, I'm going to go ahead and jump in on this because that's actually one of my biggest gripes. That is my number one big gripe is actually side character treatment. And it's not just like, I don't mind like a side character fulfilling their story arc and, like their story's completed. I'm fine with that. But it's weird that they keep getting trotted back out and like getting involved, but not really getting involved. I almost wish that you would just retire the character and let them like go off into the sunset and have their happiness. And like actually one thing I liked about Super was Tien was like running a dojo. And if he wanted to spend like the rest of his days like training people and helping them and kind of going through his own personal mission to help people in his own way, that would be awesome because that's like a fulfilling like retirement arc for Tien for him to go out there and have an impact like that. But it's weird when you kind of string these characters along and it doesn't seem to be for like their own benefit. They're just kind of there. And I feel the same way about a few other characters. Obviously, Krillin being my biggest bugaboo, where he seems to be thrown into the mix and he's kind of the ass of a lot of bad jokes, which is annoying, considering he's one of the strongest humans, if not the strongest human to have ever existed. Krillin's pretty insane, and we don't really get to see that. But then we have characters like, say, Kid Trunks or Goten, who are there, but they're never really involved in a way that's meaningful. Like even when they get cool stuff, in the Boo arc, where they should have, it felt like they were supposed to be kind of the main focus or one of the big main focuses. That goes away by the end of the series, and we never see them pick up the torch of being the heroes pretty much ever again. And so, yeah, I'm right there with you. The side character treatment was one of my biggest gripes with Dragon Ball. And I wanted to emphasize, though, that I don't care if a character fulfills their story arc and then goes off to do other things. That's fine. That's awesome. But, you know, why keep trotting them back out there and giving them this really weird limelight that doesn't really do their character's progression really any favors? I just let them be at peace. Let them do their own thing. Or in my opinion, with people like Krillin, let him kind of actually be a badass sidekick rather than letting his power level just fall off more and more and more and more.
Yes, I very much agree. And you made a good point about Tien. They actually did at least try to give him some like interesting narrative with making his own dojo and stuff. Krillin's, I mean, Krillin's your boy. I love Krillin as well, but man, the treatment that Krillin gets, especially in Super, is not great. He has so much to offer. Like I just love Krillin as a character and everything. And I mean, yeah, the power scaling and other things that they do that just make it such that Krillin cannot even be relevant is really just such a bummer. And then you have characters like Videl is a great example of like a character that you're like, well, Videl doesn't really. When we first meet her, she doesn't understand ki. She's not like superhuman. She's certainly one of the most powerful normal humans in the narrative at the time. And she's really cool, really like fiery personality, big into martial arts, and then gets relegated to being a mom and basically like a non-character, which is I will never be. I will forever be upset about that.
Yeah, they just 180 her character from like this feisty, like crime fighting badass to I'm just gonna hang out at the house. I mean, come on. Like, I wanted to see Videl do something cool, and they sidelined her like all the other characters. I mean, shoot, they're trying to like sideline Gohan half the time. It's like, what? He's supposed to be the next big thing. What are you doing?
And yeah, Gohan's, man. I mean, I'm sure Gohan's a sore point for many people, but it's like, it's give him one or the other. Like if he wants to be a scholar and he wants to be a father, let him be that. It feels like they keep trying to like pull him in both directions and they can't decide what to do with his character. And I don't know, it just starts to get frustrating. And then I mean, like in the superhero movie, they give him, you know, his own transformation, and there's, in some ways it doesn't feel earned, in some ways it feels like just a way to like slap on a more power to a character that's kind of become irrelevant. The side character treatment, and you know, Gohan isn't even, I mean, I guess later he kind of feels like a side character. He is a main character in Dragon Ball Z for sure. But yeah, this happens to a lot of characters. I mean, once you get into Super, it kind of becomes the Goku and Vegeta show, and that's why Gohan is even being mentioned and brought up in this side character discussion.
You know, and they've had so many opportunities to have Gohan just take the torch. That would have been epic. Because it felt like he was taking the torch at the end of the Cell Saga. Like you're like, all right, he's in charge now. And then like seeing him take that conviction after beating Cell into the Boo arc, where he actually steps into that role and is willingly the hero, that would have been so badass. But we kind of don't get that. I don't know. We're not going to go too far down this road. I think every time we bring up Gohan, we have to talk about it for 20 minutes. But
I know, right?
But both of us agree, like he was handled poorly. So yeah, I'm just piggybacking off of your side character statement. I've got the same thing. That was number one on my list of my gripes, where you have so many cool characters and they're so underutilized. And I'm okay with a character completing their arc, but if you're going to trot them back out, like give give them some service, man. Do some fan service with them. Make us happy that we're seeing them on the screen. Like, and you brought up Tien. Tien at least has some neat moments where it feels like they're trying to be serious. I mean, I think you brought up the Cell Tri-Beam. That was that the first time I saw that on TV as a teenager, I thought that was cool. Like
Oh
like
yeah.
it's like he's holding the line, just like giving it everything he can in a fight where he knows he can't win, and that felt kind of awesome. Also, what happens to him in the fight against the Saiyans is metal as hell because we're just coming
Oh
out of the
yeah.
Dragon Ball series, and Tien is one of the strongest people we know, and he gets just manhandled. And like, I get that it's like a measuring stick moment, but it felt like a serious one, so I'm kind of okay with that too.
That's true. I mean, it's cool that he's still, while he doesn't necessarily accomplish much. That's a good point that he's used as a measuring stick in the Saiyan arc. I I feel like him in the Saiyan arc is the last time that he's really relevant. I like his moment against Cell is awesome. I hands down one of the coolest like side character moments and making them feel because like you said, he's not going to win that fight. We all know he's not going to win that fight. He's putting himself in mortal danger in order to help his friends. So I don't want to take anything away from that moment at all. It's just that it is past the Saiyan arc. It is the only moment to me that he is relevant again, which is kind of a bummer. It's very telling that that's the only moment that he gets because they're kind of like it's almost like Akira Toriyama is pointing at himself, being like, "Hey, I know the side characters aren't relevant," and Tien's kind of like, I mean, we're putting an exclamation point on that detail in the fact that Tien's like, "I can't do anything here except hold this guy back and basically put my life on the line to even try to do that."
Yeah, and I know we're talking about the side characters for kind of a minute here, but it's on both of our lists. And I think anyone who's watched the Dragon Ball franchise, especially if you've been a fan of anybody who isn't named Goku, you probably feel this way about the side characters. I mean, even Vegeta is who I consider to be the second main character in Dragon Ball, especially by the end of Dragon Ball Super, still doesn't really get full limelight moments. Like, it's still not great for him. It's good, but it's not great for him. Like, there's a lot of writing moments that could be better for that man.
I will, yeah. I mean, as somebody who loves Vegeta, I 100% agree with you. Um, and yeah, he falls into a weird place because he is basically like the second main character, but the like they roll back some of his character arcs and stuff. I won't go on too much of a Vegeta tangent right now, but
Oh, shit, I should have
and
put that as one of my gripes, where a character develops and then like we get to the next story arc or whatever, and all that progression that they have just wipes away for some reason. I add that to the gripe list.
yeah, that's definitely that's almost like a side gripe from the side characters not being treated well.
Gripes are very
Um,
complicated. There's a flow chart. You got to be able to follow it.
That's right. We'll draw one out. We'll add that to the notes for the podcast.
But
But
that's two of my gripes actually. So I think, was that your first one?
that I guess that was my number three, and I didn't mean to stumble onto your number one. This is kind of we do a funny format for this. So should I just reveal my second one and then we can go into your second one then?
Well, I've got two out there already. So go ahead and do your next one, and then
Okay.
assuming it's not the same as my last one, I can do my reveal.
Sounds good. Okay, then my number two was this one's kind of like well, it's the lack of interesting techniques or nuanced fights. They kind of go hand in hand. I'm kind of cheating and doubling up here almost, but um part of that, I think Dayton, you and I have talked about this a bit in the past about there are so many techniques that are just beams or key blasts, and it's like one is just a Gallic gun is a purple key blast, a Kamehameha is a blue key blast, a Big Bang Attack is a yellow ball key blast. Like there's not a lot that really differentiates them. Like we kind of get the impression that like a Final Flash is maybe more powerful than a Gallic gun, But even that is something that we as the audience are kind of inferring. And this kind of ties into these techniques make for, I'm going to be honest, they make for boring fights sometimes. Like they don't make for interesting exchanges of like, oh, I use this technique. Oh, well, then I'm going to use this technique to circumvent that technique. I mean, you do see this quite honestly. You see this in other anime that have been influenced by Dragon Ball. You'll see it in things like a Naruto or something like Bleach or something like that. Um, and so while I absolutely love the fights in Dragon Ball, a lot of it comes down to who has the bigger power level. And, really like the finishing technique sometimes is, I mean, sometimes it'll be a key blast just because, a key blast can wipe a character out, but it's not even always like it's not always an interesting technique. It's just kind of like whatever technique works to finish that guy off. Um, so there's kind of a lot that goes into this. I wish that there were more techniques like, I mean, like I like a solar flare that can be used kind of like tactically, but we don't even see it used very often. So there's kind of a lot that goes into this gripe of mine.
And the further into Z you get, the less creative the techniques become, right? Because at the beginning of Z, we actually get kind of a slew of new things that we're seeing. Uh, we've got the Kaioken that's introduced, which is badass. The Spirit Bomb is a very interesting kind of twist on how a Ki Blast could work. And there's like a lot of requirements and stuff like that to it. So the first time we see that, that's very interesting. The seeing Vegeta actually control and use the Great Ape in a battle is actually really interesting. So like the Saiyan arc, you got a bunch of cool stuff. And then once we actually get to Namek and we meet Frieza and the Ginyu Force and all these other characters, there's actually there's a not as many as you would hope, but there's still a pile of interesting techniques, such as Goldo being able to stop time, Captain Ginyu doing the body swap. Uh, Unfortunately, Frieza doesn't have the most interesting repertoire of techniques, and uh, we do at least see one in like the weird prison technique that is kind of neat. But Frieza is mostly just a big scary power level, so we don't really see too many interesting techniques out of Frieza himself. But we do see a number of techniques leading up to Frieza that are interesting. But after that, the creativity really falls off a cliff, right? Because if you think about all the androids, none of them really had any techniques to really speak of. Rocket Fist is kind of cool, but at the end of the day, it's like how different is that to like a stretchy arm punch that gets you from really far away?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Funny enough, Android 16 probably has the most interesting techniques in the rocket punch, and then his, I think it's called like Hell Flash or whatever, where he pulls both of his arms off. But even that is him just pulling his arms off and firing off effectively a key blast. Um, and then Boo has some stuff that's kind of
Go Tanks
interesting.
is the only interesting part of the the Boo saga. Because he has just a pile of, I mean, most of them are one offs, but it's a bunch of cool and interesting stuff that you get to see. Um, yeah, the amount of new techniques that you see the further you get into Z, I mean, it just becomes rarer and rarer, and it's the fights start becoming, like you said, more and more just power level based. And even though we've got cool animations for the fight scenes, and there's plenty of stuff that I love, the actual techniques start getting less interesting. Even Cell is just a bunch of techniques we've seen in one character.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I agree. And Super I would say is even worse in that regard because there's the number of new techniques are fairly minimal. So we're kind of seeing like just old techniques used again with new transformations for the most part. Um I and I will say one of the other things, so like Dragon Ball, the original Dragon Ball, has a lot of really great martial arts choreography. Um, but it even mixes in the techniques. Like even flight or levitation is like a unique technique that's used to make the fights interesting. Um, but then that, just kind of becomes the norm. And then like revealing ki blasts in the original Dragon Ball, like the Kamehameha or the Dodon Ray, uh, they were used kind of sparingly and used to make the fights more interesting. But then again, those become more commonplace, and ki blasts they're just the norm. People are shooting off ki blasts left and right, and so a ki blast with a new color or a new name is not, it doesn't make the fight more interesting or engaging. It's just, oh, that's that guy's ki blast or that guy's ki blast. I mean, we see some things like hits time skip is really interesting, has some really cool details and elements that make the fight really cool with hit, but even that ends up getting it's overcome by just getting a bigger power level through Kaioken. So that was like a cool technique that ended up having a disappointing resolution.
And I could even piggyback off of this a little further and be like the transformations are also kind of the same where as you go along, the solution to everything always being like another transformation gets a little old, especially when the transformations don't really have any give and take to them. They're usually just like, I'm more powerful, but maybe this form takes more energy to maintain. Okay. Like, okay, Super Saiyan 2 or 3 or God or Blue or like, I understand. Like, it is exciting to see a new transformation, but I would like some more interesting elements to these transformations, is all I'm asking for.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Um, but I think I think I've covered most of the things that I want to about this one. I would love to see more interesting techniques and some more nuance to the fights, and that kind of ties into those techniques. Like, give us some techniques that can have some back and forth. I think in some ways it ties to what you were talking about with the one-sided fights too, Dayton, where it's like, give us some techniques where you can have some, like, this technique kind of trumps this technique, or at least have some nuance to the fights where you're like, I don't know how they're going to be able to beat this guy in the way that he's fighting right now. um so I want more than just big EP power levels are the thing that win the fight.
Yeah, and especially because these techniques tell a story, right? Like
Yeah.
the yard rats, or whatever, being able to teleport. It's like, all right, well, what do you know about yard rats? They have instant transmissions, part of their culture. They learn how to do this. It'd be cool if you had the same thing where it's like, all right, Saiyans have this technique or these techniques that they typically use, and it tells a story because these techniques are ruthless or have some elements to them that feel Saiyan-y. You can actually flesh out characters and cultures and stories a bunch by having techniques with certain characteristics. So I think it's a missed opportunity. They could do a lot better. But yeah, I'm gonna get to my second gripe here because I think we beat that dead horse pretty thoroughly. And this is my second gripe is fake fight drama. And
Ooh.
I don't like it when we spend a long time, say, in a base form when I know Super Saiyan's on the table and we have an episode or two of just all this drama that's happening. It's like, it doesn't matter. This is all a waste of time because I know you could don the gold at any moment and turn this fight around. So why are we spending so long doing this? Like, I know Goku likes to work up the fight and, feel it out or whatever he has to do. That's fine. I understand that. But we spend so much time in this stuff and they do all the dramatic music and they go through all the paces as if there is actual stress or drama here when there isn't. And so that's definitely a gripe I have with Dragon Ball is spending all this time. And I couldn't figure out anything else to call it other than fake fight drama where you put a character, quote unquote, in danger when we all know that they're not.
I agree. I'm actually okay with them kind of like building up the levels and the tension, but I think it's the drama specifically that bothers me, where you put a character like Goku on the ropes and have him struggling to like make the audience think like, oh, it's, this is a terrible situation, he's getting beat up, and then it's like, okay, well, yeah, but he's still in base form. Like, he's got 5 transformations he can go through to like actually start winning this fight. I think really the original Dragon Ball Z Broly movie is a great example of that. Actually, even better is the Super Android 13 movie, where they just take forever to actually put on the Super Saiyan and start winning the fight.
Yeah, the
Um,
Android 13 movie definitely sticks out a lot in my head because, well, one, we just watched that, and two, it's a long time of not going Super Saiyan, especially when you've got multiple characters who can go Super Saiyan and none of them have, and you're trying to build up this drama that's it's pretty obviously not there. I actually didn't mind the way the Broly movie did it because they make it like fun, like they're bouncing around, they're having fun, they're feeling each other out, like they're not trying to make me like pretend that Vegeta's in trouble when he's fighting Broly because he's popping up through the forms, and every time he gets overpowered, he hits that next form. We're not sitting there in a base form for 10 minutes longer than we need to with him getting smacked around. It's like, all right, like you're stronger than my base form. I'm gonna amp it up one, and I don't mind this because it's kind of this like slow reveal of how powerful this opponent is, right? Like as we work our way up, and that's kind of cool. Like that's kind of neat as we're eating the appetizer before we get to the main dish. But when you're sitting there and you're trying to like play the music and zoom in and slow down and, so and so's in trouble, it's like, but they're not. I don't know why we're spending all this time watching Android 13 beat all these people around when none of them have gone Super Saiyan yet.
yeah, yeah, and actually, so I think I misspoke when I said that like the Dragon Ball Z Broly movie it's fine in terms of when they introduce the transformations. I think I was thinking of the Super Android 13 movie where they just take so long to get to it. If we talk about the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, they do spend a lot of time going through pretty much each level, each transformation between Goku and Vegeta, both of them fighting Broly. And I actually like it in that movie because it doesn't that they're not giving us the false drama. They are kind of like they're escalating the fight. All the visuals are fun to watch, but it never really feels like, until they start to get to like their last tier and Broly's still beating them, it never feels like this fake drama where we as the audience are supposed to believe like, oh yeah, they're in trouble. Oh, but they haven't gone Super Saiyan Blue yet. It feels more like a spectacle, and like they are kind of like feeling things out.
Yeah, and sorry, I didn't catch if you were originally referencing the Broly, like the Super Broly movie or not, but I thought it was a great example of kind of feeling like going through the stages correctly because that Super Broly movie did it excellently. But like in say Super, how many times was Goku on the ropes and he's just like, ah man, I'm so tired. Oh, I'm not too tired to go up to that next form now, and then he just wins the fight. It like that doesn't feel like good drama to me. And there's so many points in the Tournament of Power where it just feels like, all right, well, when's he going to be able to go Super Saiyan God? Up now, he can go Super Saiyan God. He must have really relaxed while fighting these two for 10 minutes.
There's a lot. The Tournament of Power has a lot of like just manufactured drama, which is very frustrating. Um, yeah, I feel very much the same way. Like I said, I'm the Super Broly movie is probably to me like the perfect example of how to do this well without
100%.
without making the audience feel either tricked or like treating the audience like idiots and creating this like fake drama basically.
But yeah, that's my third and final gripe with the Dragon Ball franchise. What you got waiting for us? What's your big one? What's your number 3?
All right. Well, this might not come as a surprise to anybody who's listened to much of our podcast, but my number 1 gripe that I have for me personally is the Dragon Balls.
Yes. Oh man. Okay. All right. For some reason I forgot to even think about that. So I'm glad you brought it up. Yes.
For a show that is called Dragon Ball, I I don't like the Dragon Balls. I One of the best things that ever came out of Dragon Ball GT was their idea to make the Dragon Balls that the characters have been overusing them, and now there are consequences for them overusing the Dragon Balls. But like in Dragon Ball, in the original Dragon Ball, them getting the Dragon Balls was interesting. They have to go on this adventure to try to collect them and get this wish. I mean, they use it to resurrect one of the resurrect some dead characters. They use it to thwart one of the bad guys and wishing for panties. There's lots of interesting stuff with them. But then by the time you get into Z, they can move so fast that it's inconsequential to collect the Dragon Balls across the globe, especially when you throw in instant transmission. And then by the time you get to the end of the Saiyan arc and into the Frieza arc, you also find that there are Namekian Dragon Balls once Piccolo and Kami are dead and they don't have Earth's Dragon Balls. So having a second set basically means that whatever happens on Earth, as long as somebody can get to Namek, and again, we've got instant transmission later in the series, as long as you can get to Namek, you can just use the Namekian Dragon Balls and undo all of the consequences that happened, whether it's the Earth blowing up or people dying or whatever. And then add to that, you get even more Dragon Balls. You get the Super Dragon Balls and Dragon Ball Super, and you get in Daima, you get another set of Dragon Balls in the Demon Realm. So we've just that, and I'm not even talking about the manga at this point. I think I've counted through 4 sets of Dragon Balls. If you count GT, you got the Dark Star Dragon Balls. So we've got near half a dozen sets of Dragon Balls that can undo any of the consequences and ramifications that happen in the story, whether it's people dying, worlds blowing up. There's no stakes. It takes away the stakes and the tension, and it drives me nuts.
You know, and that's not even counting the fact that beyond the Dragon Balls, we still have other ways to kind of undo things that have happened, whether that's Whis being able to rewind time. I mean, shoot, Bulma makes a time machine. So we've got 2 different instances of time travel that I can think of. I mean, shoot, you kind of want consequences to feel like they matter. And the more loopholes you add to the universe to kind of circumvent those consequences, the less tension there is, because you can just back up time. You can go, I don't know, talk to God and just have things, backed up for you. I agree. One set of Dragon Balls was already problematic enough, but now we've got several sets, and you can do multiple wishes on these sets. And yeah, I agree. For a series called Dragon Ball, the Dragon Ball sure do cause a lot of issues with the series. And I really enjoyed the journey in original Dragon Ball of tracking them down, because it did feel like an adventure, right? And you mentioned instant transmission kind of makes it pretty trivial. It was awesome when it was actually a lot of effort to be able to chase those things down. And I wouldn't mind returning to a type of universe where it is an adventure to get those Dragon Balls. And we go back to, because they're always trying to go back to that original Dragon Ball feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But they also want it to be Dragon Ball Z, and they never seem to be able to find that kind of right balance between the two, because they've done it with Daima and they've done it with Super now. And I kind of want them, if they're actually going to make that effort to make it feel a little bit more like original Dragon Ball, they've got to do something about the ability of our characters to travel places, because it's too easy. And they need to make the Dragon Balls more meaningful. And right now, you can pretty much undo anything that's done in the universe. I mean, shoot, Boo killed the entirety of Earth. And even the main character, even Goku, was like, it doesn't matter because we have Dragon Balls. The tension kind of gets sucked out of the room as soon as you realize that. I mean, even when Goku's telling you that we don't have to worry about anything, there's a problem.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and like you said, in actually, so in Daima, they shrunk down our characters or de-aged them, and they made it such that Goku couldn't really use the instant transmission. And it turned into this adventure to find the Dragon Balls in the demon realm. Um,
The first
and
third
so
of
it,
that show was so good. The way they did, like, took everything, made it come back down to earth, and the effort they went to make it feel like it's a more martial arts based world now. Like, I loved all that stuff they did. I just wish they wouldn't have abandoned it.
I agree. Yeah. So I felt like Diamond did a great job of that, even if I didn't necessarily like them introducing another set of Dragon Balls. The GT tried to do the same thing. They de-aged Goku. They made it such that he couldn't use the instant transmission. They introduced another new set of Dragon Balls that, it had to be an adventure to go find them across space and time, or just space, I guess. So I mean, I like that element. If you make it hard to get the Dragon Balls, I don't think that they are a problem. The problem is throughout the majority of Z and beyond, it's trivial to get not only the Earth's Dragon Balls, but with instant transmission, it becomes trivial to get the Namekian Dragon Balls. So it just removes pretty much any stakes or tension that we have, because we're like, they can just wish things back to the way they were. And throughout the series too, the Dragon Balls become more powerful and easier to use. I think originally they can only resurrect one person. They get to the point where they can resurrect multiple people. They get to the point where they get, at some points, the Earth's Dragon Balls have one wish, then two wishes, then three wishes. I think that they even change like how often they reset at times, or they just
shoot, in Daima, he just resets them at the beginning, where he's just like, I'll just reset these. Like, sometimes they just break the rules.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is sometimes they just make up a way to reset the Dragon Balls. So there's just so many ways that they are problematic. I want a canon arc where they express how problematic or how dangerous or some sort of consequences for using the Dragon Balls over and over and over. I would love them to kind of take that concept from GT and rehash it, make it something that is canon and something that gives us consequences again.
I 100% agree. Like I said, I'm glad you brought that one up, because it slipped my mind when I was thinking about this. But yeah, that's definitely an issue with the Dragon Ball franchise, is how easy they can just remedy about any consequence in the Dragon Ball. Like, nothing kind of feels like it matters. We've talked about how we like the Future Trunks timeline because it's so permanent. It's so gritty, and there's a part of that I really wish, maybe not as dark as his entire timeline, like that's some pretty dark stuff, but some elements of that would be nice to have back in the Dragon Ball universe.
Yes, yeah, very much so. But I've kind of gone on about the Dragon Balls themselves for a while myself. I kind of stumbled upon your number one with the side characters being sidelined. How did you word yours? Was it just side character treatment?
Yeah, I just call it side character treatment, because it's all of it. It's the side characters are not only kind of forgotten about, but in some cases they're actually not utilized well. And it's disappointing to see some of our favorite characters be kind of made a joke of, or just trotted out as a measuring stick for whatever reason, when it doesn't really matter. I would like to see, if we're going to put them on screen, I want to see them treated much better than they are.
I agree, and we kind of hashed that out quite a bit, but I think that it's pretty clear that that's a big one. If both you and I put it in our top three, like this is I think they need to adjust how they treat their side characters a little bit.
Yeah, and for me, like my other two, which is non-fight fights and fake fight drama, fighting is like the most important part of Dragon Ball to me. And so when you start messing with that, or if you do it poorly, I'm going to notice, because I hand wave so much other stuff for the Dragon Ball franchise, where it's like, all right, if I thought about this like logically, like we've got instant transmission on the table, I could solve so many of these problems. But I'm mostly here for a cool fight, so I don't care about any of that. Just give me the good fight. And when you're waiting for these fights, or you build up these fights, or you spend a bunch of time on a fight, and it's not great, yeah, it irks me a little bit. So those are like the reason why I picked fight related things for Dragon Ball, because I always that's always like the focus for me. It's like hard work and fighting. If you mess up those two things, then I'm upset.
Yeah, and that kind of goes along with my number two, which was the lack of interesting techniques or nuanced fights. So it's that kind of plays along with your idea there of like fights are just kind of a crucial part of Dragon Ball. They need to be interesting. They need to be well done. Uh, but I think we covered most of our top gripes. Do we want to talk about some of our, I guess, honorable mentions? Some of the other things that we were kind of thinking about here.
Yeah, and honestly, I wouldn't mind kicking things off with what I think might be the elephant in the room, and that's going to be power levels. That's something that everyone is aware that power levels are a problem. They're pretty lame. I don't like some number basically determining who's going to win a fight. But I've also kind of learned to just accept it at this point because it's been such a long running thing in Dragon Ball that I accept that it's there. And if they ever do something to circumvent power levels, I will applaud them. But as long as the fights are cool, and also power levels can change during a fight too, right? It's not always just that snapshot determining everything. And sometimes power levels are just a lie and don't make sense. So there's a lot going on with power levels, a lot of complaints. I don't hang my hat on it too much at this point.
Yeah, I think one of the ones that I put on my honorable mentions that goes very much hand in hand with this, the way that I had worded it was power creep, which is it's along the same lines as power level, but I almost just put it in my top three, but I thought it was a less interesting conversation than the other ones. I think this is something that you brought up when we were talking about this, Dayton. But power creep is such a big issue, and it kind of ties into what we talked about with like side characters no longer being relevant, right? Like by the time I think the turning point for me is in the Frieza arc. Like once Goku goes Super Saiyan, the side characters are most of them have no way to even remotely catch up to that. Like they manufacture some ways, like Piccolo absorbing Kami and stuff like that, but like Krillin at that point is almost never relevant again. So it's like that's once the power level scaling gets to that point, and once the power creep is just so far out the window that your side characters are no longer relevant, that is really that becomes a true problem.
And it's kind of annoying that, the Saiyans are getting 13 different forms that increase their power, but we don't see any for any non-Saiyan characters really. And so the power scale just like if every Super Saiyan form is, just to use a number, makes you 10 times more powerful. Well, if you're in Super Saiyan, 10 or whatever the hell it is, like there's no comparison to, like there's no way for other characters to ever catch up to that, and it's annoying. And on top of that, I think it takes away from the drama because now the suspense of disbelief gets like the ass gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I feel more connected and more involved with Goku's very first World Martial Arts tournament. Like I feel more emotionally involved in that than I do the DBZ characters fight with Jiren at the end of Super. I love the fight with Jiren and Super. Like it's really badass. It's cool to watch. But as far as emotional weight, I was more invested in Goku's very first martial arts tournament. Like that felt like a more emotional moment for me. Because it's relatable in like 10 different ways. Whereas once you start getting like, hey, we're hanging out with the gods, it's like, all right, well, this is just kind of nutty and I'm here for the spectacle. Like it's gone too far, and I think things need to be reined in just a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough to rein it in. Like they've tried multiple times with GT and Daima in particular, and it's like Daima did a pretty good job in a lot of ways, but then just kind of let go of that hold. I mean, I guess they had to just because of where it falls in the timeline, but it's
20 years ago, I used to be like involved in Magic the Gathering. And I'm going to make this reference because in the Magic the Gathering storyline, When they started out, they came up with the concept of something called like a planeswalker, which is basically like a super wizard, incredibly powerful being that can traverse great distances and conjure spells and blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. But when they first came up with this concept, they made them like super powered, and it made the universe really wonky to like kind of balance when you've got all these like god level beings flying around. And so they came up with this event called the Mending that lowered the power of all of these planeswalkers so that way they could actually have stuff make sense. I'm okay with Dragon Ball doing something along those lines to kind of rein everything back in because it's nuts. Like, if we're going to keep going forward with the story, everyone basically can blow up like entire planets and galaxies with like the flick of a finger. How do you even have realistic fights at that point?
That's very funny. I didn't really know much about the mending, but yeah, I wouldn't be upset to see something like
Also, I
that
probably
happen.
butchered parts of it because I haven't looked at the stuff in like 20 years. And for all I know, they retconned it. But you know what? I'm okay with having an event to bring things back down to earth.
The Magic the Gathering fan base is gonna ream us online.
Oh yeah, well you're wrong. They didn't actually do it. It wasn't okay, but the general idea is there. But yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, power levels that's the one I wanted to get that out of the way because that's obviously a gripe, a big gripe. Actually, that you could just put that in problem category. That's not just a gripe. That is an issue with the Dragon Ball franchise.
I think like you said, it's one that's so pervasive in Dragon Ball that the entire fan base is at least aware of it. I think I would be shocked if even like the people who are all about like what's his power level. I would be shocked if even those people aren't aware that it's a problem.
um, to kind of bring up another gripe too, that relates in a weird way, and we've talked about this actually multiple times and just in our conversations, is the actually the name of our podcast. Instant transmission is kind of a big problem for Dragon Ball, isn't it?
We've talked about it multiple times, right? I mean, we it was one of the big topics that we both kind of brought up in terms of collecting the Dragon Balls. I mean, just being able to go anywhere in an instant, it solves so many problems, which, because it solves so many problems, it removes a lot of stakes and a lot of tension.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many moments where Goku pops in and saves somebody, or Goku pops over here and grabs the thing. It makes you have an entire universe, and it feels tiny now, because you
Hmm.
can pretty much be anywhere at any time. And I, it's an interesting idea. I don't mind Toriyama playing around with an idea like this, but especially once he starts being able to do it pretty much at like a moment's notice and go anywhere. Because before it seemed like when it was first introduced, there was like a build up to it, and he had to stop and focus, and there had to be like an energy he could really lock on to, and so there were limitations to it. But it just feels like over time we've kind of removed a lot of that, where he can kind of instant transmission at will, and his ability to sense energy is nuts. Like the idea of reaching out across the universe and sensing like I don't know, Namek is kind of nutty to me. And so maybe if they rein it back in, it could be okay. But as it stands right now, it's too easy to use. It's too powerful. Instant transmission just it gets rid. What was I going to say? Oh, the adventure element is now gone. There is no
Ooh.
adventure in Dragon Ball because some of the fun stuff in Dragon Ball is the actual journey to get to where you're going. Right? It's the actual search for the Dragon Balls once you make it to Namek, and you're avoiding the bad guys who are there who are searching for you. Well, if you could teleport to wherever all the Dragon Balls are, then you will never be found and you can just leave. So yeah, it's really adventure shattering and world breaking. So yeah, that's definitely a gripe that needed to be brought up.
That's a great way to put it too, is that it kind of ruins the adventure aspect of the franchise. Yeah, I think that's another great point. I one of the other ones that I had on my list of honorable mentions, and you kind of brought this up in the techniques discussion, but I worded it as boring transformations. Like,
Yes.
we're just getting recolor and reskin after recolor and reskin, and there's most of them, there's not anything unique or interesting about them. There's not like a downside, there's not like a quirk or something special, or they don't specialize in anything. They I I will say the exception is Ultra Instinct. There's some stuff that I do like about that. Um
I'm
but
waiting a little bit. I want to see where they go with Ultra Instinct.
right, yeah, and I'm saying that from the perspective of like reading ahead in the manga. Uh
Oh, nerd.
So they do some more interesting stuff with that one. But that is like the exception. If you look at I mean Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Blue, uh Gohan beast form, like even fucking Piccolo's orange Piccolo or whatever. It's mostly just a recolor. Like they're just not interesting. They're just ways of like, yeah, I will say I do get hyped to see a new transformation. Like they do get that excitement out of me, but then after the fact, like after that initial hype moment, I'm kind of like disappointed. Like I don't know, it's just empty calories. They're not great.
Yeah, you want something interesting, like something meaty that you can sink your teeth into. Where you're like, all right, well, you're going to use the multiform technique or something. Oh, well, it divides your power. So what's the use of that? Like, it doesn't, there's nothing for you to really think about if it's just a straight power boost. And I was okay with it with like the original Super Saiyan transformation. Even afterwards, even at this point in time, I'm okay with it because it's kind of this revered, legendary, built up, like world changing event. I'm cool with that. It can just be a power up because of how much work goes into just getting there. But a lot of the ones after that feel shoehorned in a way. Um and I don't know. I just want a little bit more. And I don't think it's a bad thing to ask for more out of your transformations. I think things should get more interesting as we move forward, but instead they're getting less interesting, just like the techniques that are being used. So I'm wondering if Dragon Ball needs to just like slow it down a little bit and just give us less content that's more interesting, really flesh out these characters. Because I'm wondering if maybe some of the stuff is rushed out the door and the characters aren't fleshed out as much as maybe they should or need to be.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I would even add to that for the original Super Saiyan, like at the very first time that it's revealed, there is kind of so there's like the a little bit of a downside to it where Goku he's so outraged, like he can't really control his emotions. And we don't explore that a ton, but like him screaming at Gohan to like get the hell out of there and stuff is like I like that. I like seeing that there is like a darkness to this transformation in its own way.
No,
But
you just
the
reach down into your lower back and you feel a tingle and you're a Super Saiyan. That's what are you talking about?
oh, Dragon Ball Super, how you ruin things. Uh yeah, so I like the way it was done originally. But I mean, even with Super Saiyan, like those that downside disappears after truly after the first time that it was really shown. We don't really get to see that very much after that. And there's most of the other transformations don't really have a downside. That's one of the reasons why we like you and I both like Kaioken so much, is because it at least, even though they don't explore it too much, it does have a significant downside.
Yeah. I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head with that one because it's I just want interesting stuff. Like it doesn't always have to make sense. Rule of cool always flies with me. Just have them do something cool and, I'll fill in the gaps later with whatever fan fantasy I want to come up with.
Yeah, yeah, that does happen pretty often. I think I only had a couple honorable mentions here. I'm sure there are plenty of other like big fan base gripes that people have. Did you have anything else on your list, Dayton?
I sort of did, but it's more or less it's kind of like saying the side character treatment, but in a different way. It's just the weird focus on Goku and how he's just jammed into every storyline is kind of an honorable gripe that I had where he's so shoehorned in sometimes that it almost annoys me where it's just like just stay dead, like stay over there so that way we can actually have the storyline here. Like Goku coming back and training people sounds awesome. You get to learn, Goku gets to be the master. That's great. And you can tell I'm referencing Boo quite a bit. But when he comes back and then also saves the day, it annoys the hell out of me. Like, let him actually pass the torch off. Like, we've done it a couple times now. Or even in Super, where it just becomes like the Goku show, basically. It gets kind of annoying. And like, these are kind of two different issues for me, because on one hand, it's how you're treating the side characters and how they're kind of irrelevant and how you kind of make jokes out of them, but also the efforts you go to insert Goku into the hero role in certain situations. Just kind of great. It's a gripe. Gets to me a little bit. Like, there are more natural ways of doing things, and you guys usually pick the most ham-fisted way to get our main boy involved.
Yeah, this ties into a couple different problems that we've already kind of talked about, which one of them being the instant transmission, right? Because Goku being the character who can use the instant transmission, it means that there is almost never a circumstance where it wouldn't make sense for Goku to be present. You would have to fabricate reasons that Goku is either preoccupied or trapped in another dimension or something to make it logically make sense in the universe that Goku wouldn't just teleport there and solve the problem for everybody else.
Yeah, it gets to be a little bit much. And I almost feel like there are certain situations where like our side characters are fabricated in a way to where they will need Goku. And I mean, I get it. He's the face of the franchise. He's going to save the day. He's got to be there. But there's definitely more elegant ways that they can do it than what they sometimes actually pull off. And yeah, the instant transmission is definitely a problem. Like, it's definitely a big problem on our main character.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I agree. I think that there are, I mean, some of the fan base makes jokes about calling, GT is jokingly called Goku Time, and Dragon Ball Super has been called the Goku and Vegeta show. Like, I think a good chunk of the fan base is aware that it's an issue. Like, Goku's the main character, but it doesn't mean that we can't let other characters shine and have their time in the limelight as well.
And I do like the one thing I will give Super credit for is that the very final battle, it did feel like the entire crew was kind of coming together in a way to bring down the big bad guy. So at least the end of that wasn't just Goku. And I like that in the Saiyan arc too, where Goku needed his friends to win that fight against Vegeta. He wouldn't have won it on his own, and I like that. So if we could do more stuff like that, I'm all here for. He can win the day, but sometimes it feels like the efforts that other people are contributing are either arbitrary or not actually very helpful, or like, I don't know. It's interesting. They need to be a little bit more fluid about getting everyone to kind of work together in some of these situations.
Yeah, I very much agree. I think we've covered all of our gripes on the list. I do want to say, because we've spent an hour expressing gripes about Dragon Ball, that again, we both love Dragon Ball, and that's really the only reason that we even feel the need to express our gripes about it. So it's, I mean, I think anybody who is a fan of a franchise, there are things that they don't like about it or would like to see changed or done better. I just like to see Dragon Ball at its best, and sometimes it's not always at its best.
Well, I'd also like to point out that Todd's lying to you. We are posting nearly 100 episodes of just complaining about Dragon Ball. We hate it. That's so understand that if you haven't figured that out by now, we're definitely not fans, which is why we've made this many episodes.
That makes perfect sense. Yep, this is a Dragon Ball podcast about shitting on Dragon Ball.
Actually, honestly, I wonder if stuff like that it has to exist. I bet you that stuff does exist out there.
I'm gonna be searching for that on Google after we're finished recording. But I think that pretty much does it. That's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. Did you have anything else you wanted to discuss, Dayton?
No, get us the hell out of here.
All right, that's going to be it for this episode of Instant Transmission, where we discuss everything Dragon Ball. This has been your host, Todd.
And Dayton.
Don't forget, we're on Patreon and Discord. If you want to fill our box with your peeves, you can find us at patreon.com/ITDP podcast.
That was not even good. That was not even great.
The Discord link will be in the episode description, but you can also find it and all of our other links at linktree/ITDB podcast. Thank you all so much for your support. Be sure to join us next time as we take a small sidestep in the world of shonen anime, just in time for the wildly successful movie release of Demon Slayer Infinity Castle. That's right, we're talking about an anime that clearly takes inspiration from Dragon Ball in its action and storytelling. Dayton and I will cover some broad strokes about Demon Slayer as a whole, how it connects to Dragon Ball, and discuss the new movie after watching it in theaters. Is Tanjiro the new Goku? Which breathing technique is the coolest? Why aren't there more pervy old men in Demon Slayer?
No, doesn't need it.
Find out next time. And to all our fellow Dragon Ball fans, stay safe out there, and remember to keep rocking the dragon.
Ever wish you could go Super Saiyan on your daily commute? Power up your day with instant transmission.
All right, it's about time we get the people
Dayton
fired
and
up.
Todd as they dive deep into the electrifying world of Dragon Ball. From epic battles and legendary techniques